What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
If you're the guy who can't finish a sandwich, you think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
No, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days and Counting with your boy, EJ Stewart. We got a lot to do on this show. This will be the only show this week. Quick little programming note. There'll only be one episode of 40 Days and Counting this week. I know typically I do a Tuesday, 6 p.m. live stream, a Friday, 8 a.m. live stream. No Friday show. I'll be away. As you guys have known, if those have been following this show, following just my movements on social media, you guys know that I will be getting married very soon. And this weekend is the bachelor weekend for your boy EJ Stewart. I give myself a little round of applause there. So I'll be out of town. I'm not saying where I'm going right now, but you guys will see soon enough. I won't be obviously where I'm currently located, of course based in New York City. So I'll be out, so I won't be able to do a live stream or record for the rest of the week and the weekend. So no Friday show. So this will be the only 40 Days and Counting episode here. It'll be the first 40 episode missed. I didn't miss anything in 40 days and 40 nights. Haven't missed anything in 40 and counting yet, but this will be the one, and for a good reason, because obviously I'm very excited for my upcoming wedding and excited for my marriage. That's soon to be. So I'm really excited about that. But this will be the only show, so we're going to make sure we get in as much as possible. We get to everything we need to get to, because there's a lot to talk about, man. We have new national champions. We have a men's national champion in Michigan. They beat UConn last night. We'll start the show talking about their win. We have a women's national champion in UCLA. A lot was talked about with UCLA, and they had a great performance. Shout out to Lauren Betts. Shout out to Gabriela Jaquez, Kiki Rice, and of course Corey Close, their head coach. They had a just destruction of South Carolina in their win on Sunday. What became the biggest story out of the Final Four for the women actually became a story regarding Dawn Staley and Geno Auriemma because of their verbal altercation after the Final Four game that happened on Friday night. So we'll talk a ton about that altercation because we got an update on that story just before I hit the live button and the record button on this live stream of 40 Days and Counting. So we'll update you on Dawn versus Geno. We'll also talk some other stuff regarding hoops. A big expose by ESPN, essentially kind of illuminating what is going to be the end of Giannis Antetokounmpo's time with the Milwaukee Bucks and just how chaotic the season had gone. We know that this has gotten really messy when it comes to this NBA investigation that's been launched because Giannis has refused to be allowed to be shut down this season despite suffering from a multitude of injuries, but the latest being a hyperextended knee. And the Bucks wanting to shut him down, Giannis pushing the players union to not allow him to be shut down because he wants to play, even though that would be extremely detrimental to the Bucks. Whether you're talking about tanking efforts, whether you're talking about just simply wanting to make sure that your franchise player is healthy heading into next season, as these final games are meaningless, it just makes no sense for him to want to play. Based on some of the back and forth during these early findings in this investigation by the NBA, it seems like Giannis also doesn't seem all that keen on playing, so this all seems really bizarre. So Shams Charania dropped a pretty explosive article regarding just or detailing rather just how bad things are, and then detailing some just interesting Doc Rivers-isms that we have, some more to add to the man that we coined the Spin Doctor on the Maggie and Perloff show on Infinity Sports Network. So we'll break that down. We'll also talk about LeBron's critique, or rather his response to the critique to his comments about Memphis. I spoke a lot about that last Friday, and I heard from a lot of the witnesses and sycophants who did not like that some mean words were said about the King. And I wasn't the only person who said LeBron was completely out of line, and he was extremely disappointing in his comments to Bob Does Sports, saying that the team should be moved from Memphis to Nashville. But I certainly heard from everybody acting as if I was the only person who said that, because there's a ton of commentary on TikTok and IG. But it's all good. I do not care if you guys don't like that. I could care less. LeBron responded, so I'm very curious to talk about his response to what was pretty strong criticism from a lot of people, whether it be fans, media members, people who did not think that he was in the right to say what he said about the city of Memphis. And I know sometimes I shortchange my wrestling topics, but I do want to get to my wrestling topic at the end here because CM Punk kind of, put a jolt of energy through this WrestleMania build with his promo from Monday Night Raw last night. And it's funny how sometimes the wrestling gods just point you in a direction. Like last night, I'm watching the Knicks. The Final Four is about to start, obviously. And I was like, something tells me I should turn on to the beginning of Raw tonight. I don't know why. I don't know what it was. I had no idea. I didn't read any articles or any reports or dirt sheets saying, oh, Punk's going to start the show. But given some of the conversation and some of the reporting that came out of Pat McAfee's return to WWE and his alliance with Randy Orton and in turn turning heel and how that came about and how bizarre it was, I felt like Raw was going to be something I needed to pay attention to start the show. And boy, am I glad I did, because I think we got last night the best CM Punk promo since he has rejoined WWE. So we'll talk about that. So much to do here on 40 Days and Counting with your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live in multiple spots, including streaming live on YouTube New Generation Media. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure again to hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you're watching in the video, make sure you like this video. If you can comment in the comment section, all those things help us, so we greatly appreciate all that if you can. So we're streaming live on YouTube New Generation Media. Also streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart. Make sure you follow me on X, and you can comment in the comment section there as well. I respond to all comments throughout the show. So streaming live on YouTube, streaming live on X, and now streaming live on Instagram, because once again, I had to click the button one more time. There's always that extra step sometimes I forget. I did forget it here, but I just hit the button just now. So we are now live on Instagram as well. Action EJs, where you'll find me on Instagram. So whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching me on X, whether you watch my Instagram, there are so many places to find this show. Again, this is 40 Days and Counting, where I do typically 2 shows per week. One Tuesday, 6 p.m. Second one, Friday, 8 a.m. No Friday show this week, but for the weeks moving forward, you can expect to see multiple shows a week. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Friday, 8 a.m. So excited to get the ball rolling, man. Let's get it started. Let's begin with the national championship game. So we have a new national champion. I think to really no one's surprise, it is the Michigan Wolverines. They took care of business. They beat UConn last night 69-63 to win its second national championship. Michigan, for the majority of the year, had comported itself as one of, if not the best team in college basketball, albeit just a few hiccups and a few, losses throughout the year that didn't allow them to be the number 1 overall seed. But make no mistake that when they were clicking on all cylinders, this was a team that seemed the most dangerous. And what they did to UConn last night in a game that was very competitive, and UConn certainly didn't lie down, but it was just striking to see, despite UConn doing everything they could to make this a competitive game, and Michigan seemingly still playing not its best ball. You had Yaxel Lendenberg, who he had injured his ankle and knee in the Final Four game, a game that they were pummeling Arizona, which I told you guys on Friday at Arizona winning the national championship and winning that game. I could not have been more wrong. They went from pummeling Arizona to then coming into this game, despite Yaxel Lendenberg dealing with an injury, and it did not really matter. They still were able to find a way to win this one fairly convincingly. Again, it wasn't as if like UConn didn't put up any kind of fight, but Michigan, think about this, for the entire game, hit just 2 threes. They were 2 for 15. Yaxel Lendenberg, who is their best player, All-American, was 4 for 13. They only got 8 points from Madai Maurer, their 7'3" center. And they still won by 6 points in a fairly convincing fashion in which they controlled the entire game. They kept UConn to just 31% shooting. UConn really could never get their big guns going, whether it was Reed, who was 4 for 12, Braylon Mullins, who was obviously the hero in the game. Well, first of all, he was a hero in the Final Four. He had a huge shot to kind of keep Illinois at bay as they were trying to make a late run. But he obviously was a major hero coming out of the Elite Eight game. But they really could never get Reed, Mullins, or Carabon consistently going. And Solo Ball got into foul trouble, even though he had some good moments in this game. So UConn, they defended well. They did a good job of, for the most part, take care of the ball. Only 11 turnovers. But when you shoot 31%, it's going to be almost impossible to be a team as good as Michigan. But Michigan, make no mistake about it, they make you shoot 31%. It's not like, UConn just, shots weren't going in. Michigan contests everything. They are so good in terms of their defense when it comes to the interior. They just block everything off. And it was a really impressive performance. Thoroughly a dominant year for the Michigan Wolverines. Dusty May wins his first national championship. They keep Dan Hurley from cementing the legacy and cementing the dynasty of 3 championships in 4 years, which I'm sure will bring a smile to a lot of people's faces who may not love Dan Hurley. But no, Michigan, this was what was to be expected. I think when we think about what to take from this beyond just this year, Dusty May has proven to be one of the best college basketball coaches we have. He at Florida Atlantic, he took them to the Final Four. He was an awesome coach there. Developed some mid-major guys into being real prime, high D1 type players, and built a real respectable program. When he got hired by Michigan, I think there were some kind of rolling the eyes. I don't think anyone was super convinced that he was going to be able to turn this team into a champion. The Florida Atlantic team, as good as they were under May, they had one Final Four run, but that was really it in terms of any tournament success. In his first 2 years in Michigan, I mean, they've been 2 years of elite basketball, and now I think it becomes, is May on Hurley's block? Like, is there a possibility with Dan Hurley today? I think even in a loss, I think he kind of cemented himself as the best coach in college basketball. To take your champion team to the national championship 3 years, 3 times in 4 years is insane. So I think there's no question that he probably holds the crown. But what I think has been interesting about college basketball is we've certainly seen, I think, somewhat of like a changing of the guard, somewhat of a holding pattern. Like, there's a little bit of a void, I think, when you think about the elite, iconic college basketball coaches. Like, college football and basketball are one of those, they're both 2 sports in which and it's the nature of just college sports, I think, that the coaches in many ways a lot bigger than the athletes and the stars in terms of the actual players. The coaches are the stars of this. And because so many we've seen in recent years go by the wayside, you had, Mike Krzyzewski retire. You had Roy Williams retire. And now we're starting to see some of the other big name coaches that are kind of, Tony Bennett left. Jay Wright retired. Like, so you had a lot of guys just retire who were household names and legendary coaches and big personalities. But then now you also kind of have the older guys that are left definitely feel like they're on, like, if not hole 18, maybe hole 17 or 16. You think about Calipari, Izzo, Bill Self seemed like he was this close from actually calling it quits. And Mark Few, I think those are the guys. Those are the main guys I can think about right now. These have been the faces of college basketball for 20 years, 25 years. And a bunch of guys have left already, and there are more guys coming that are leaving. So this Final Four actually was unique in the sense that I did feel like this was perhaps maybe like an ushering in of the new guard of who will be the next faces of college basketball from the coaching standpoint. May now has a national championship. He has multiple Final Four appearances. Michigan looks like they're going to be a perennial winner under him, so he definitely enters that class potentially. We know Dan Hurley, who he is, so we know he's not going anywhere. Tommy Lloyd is a young star, I think, when it comes to college basketball, despite how terrible that performance was in the Final Four. I don't think Arizona's going anywhere. So I think there are new guys that are going to emerge as the new faces and new voices of the sport, but I think we're still in a weird in-between, right? So what I'm curious about is this the beginning of us seeing the new generation, and is Dusty May a part of that? This is a guy, a long time coming. This guy was a grad assistant, not even grad assistant, he was a student manager at Indiana, and was essentially just begging people to have jobs, and he's known to have a bit of a quirky personality. we saw in the Final Four, instead of being with his team in the locker room prior to the game for the first half, he was actually scouting UConn, Illinois from the press box, which is not something. This is like high school basketball stuff. Like, that's something you typically see a high school coach do, where they watch the team that they may play in the next round of right before your team plays. But there's no locker room to hang out in or place to sit around and lounge or whatever. So that's not something you see in the more at Lucas Oil Stadium, right, in the Final Four, where the coach was about to play in 20 minutes, or because of this Final Four was an hour because of the Chainsmokers concert we had to have in between games. But the coach that's about to coach in a game in an hour, the biggest game of his life, you don't see them normally like pen and paper writing down scouting notes for the next team they're going to play. But he wanted to do that because he said that he hadn't watched UConn much, and if UConn was the team they wanted to play, he actually wanted to get a feel for their size and their speed up close and personal rather than trying to rely on tape. So that was a little bit of a peek into who Dusty May is, and a little bit of maybe the quirkiness that comes with him as a coach. But he's a phenomenal coach, and Michigan deserved this national championship. I was really impressed by Elliot Cadeau. If there was somebody that really wanted to shout out from them in terms of not having your best from Lindenborg, Maurer didn't seem to have the kind of, he always has an impact. He's 7'3", and he did a good job on Tariff Street for sure. But in terms of the offensive impact, he wasn't quite as impactful as maybe you would think he would have been. But Elliot Cadeau, after a rough shooting performance in the Final Four, he was 5 for 11. He led the team with 19 points. He was 8 from 9 from the free throw line. That was a huge key in this game. Michigan was 25-28 from the free throw line. At one point in the game, I believe they were 23 for 24. I think they made 23 of their first, or it might have been perfect even. I don't know what it was, but they basically didn't miss a free throw for 35 minutes of this game, which is these small things. When you talk about two teams that shot 31 and 38% respectively, those are some of the things that will determine who wins and loses. But Cadeau, and even though he didn't shoot well the first game, it wasn't like he played poorly. He did a great job running the show, getting guys involved. He had a good floor game despite not shooting well. He was able to combine a good floor game where he only had one turnover in this one with some good shooting. He shot 5 for 11. He had some big and ones. He was great in this one. I'm also always impressed by Morez Johnson, who is someone that actually I've been kind of starting to circle when I think about these guys in the NBA draft, guys who may not go top 10, top 5, who may be some steals later in the draft. He is so physically imposing and so athletic around the basket. He's a really good offensive rebounder. I thought he was really key as well early in the game in terms of setting the tone with physicality and his just relentlessness around the glass. He was awesome in this game as well. He had 5 offensive rebounds in this game. I mean, he's just a horse down there. So those two guys, both also star players. We talk so much about Lindenborg and Maurer, but I thought it was actually Johnson Jr. and Cadeau who really set the tone for Michigan in this one. So they win. It was, again, maybe not the blowout that people were expecting or anything like that, but it was a competitive game. But Michigan controlled throughout. They were the best team in college basketball. And as we enter next year, you think about, where does college basketball go from here, and who are the favorites? It's very early, but you got the early top 25, and Jeff Borzello, who writes for ESPN, he's already got Michigan number 1. And there's a lot to be decided though. We got to see. Ellie Cadeau will probably be back, but is Johnson back? Is Maurer back? If those two are, combining with Trey McKinney, who certainly should be back too, it's hard to imagine they're not going to be the favorites next year. Now, Johnson could leave early. I think Maurer also could leave early. Those are going to be big NBA draft decisions. But Michigan very well may not be a one and done. And on the flip side, even if those guys leave, what we've now seen from Dusty May 2 years in a row, that he knows how to attack the transfer portal and do it at a high level. That's the last thing I want to say on this game. I saw some commentary. One guy from Arizona, an Arizona, I think he was like a TV reporter or whatever. And sometimes with these people, listen, he's from Arizona. I'm assuming he roots for Arizona. There's a little bit of Arizona spin, and maybe he's not as familiar with what Michigan's been doing or their whole season or anything like that. But some guy from Arizona who's like a Arizona sports writer or sports reporter wrote a tweet saying that, it's really a sad thing in college basketball that just whoever has the most money, that's who's gonna win that championship. That's it. There's no other nuance to it, which is so nonsensical and such BS. And let me be clear, money is very important. You got to have the money to acquire guys and make guys want to leave their schools to go to your schools. That's for sure. But if you look at Michigan's team, this was not a team that said, oh, let me pluck a bunch of 5-star recruits and future NBA superstars, and that's the team we're going to put around us, and it's going to be a walk into the national championship game. This is not, John Calipari signing the best recruiting class every single year, where you're signing essentially guys who are going to be the number 1 and number 2 pick in the draft, and Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Like that's not what was happening. The Michigan recruit really did a smart job, and a lot of this is why I give Dusty and his staff credit. Is talent evaluation is crucial in the transfer portal. It's not just, oh, let me just re-enlist who the best players are. All right, let's get all those guys. Just give them all the money. That's not how the transfer portal works, nor is it what Michigan did. Elliot Cadeau was certainly going to be one of the high-end transfer guys that were out there, but there were people at Michigan and North Carolina who were kind of happy he was on his way out. He kind of wore out his welcome to a lot of people at Chapel Hill. We'll talk about North Carolina in a second. So he wasn't some shoo-in that everybody knew was going to be a great point guard for Michigan. That was far from the truth. Adai Maurer could not get burned at UCLA. Again, we're not talking about a guy who this was a 5-star all world type recruit at all. This guy was from Spain, and a lot of people didn't know much about him, and he didn't play at all at UCLA. So yeah, he was a 5-star. I want to make sure I got that right. He was a 5-star at UCLA, but he was not a guaranteed top prospect in terms of an NBA guy. He was somebody that was not getting time at UCLA, and taking him was taking a flyer. According to 247 Sports, he was the 8th best center in the transfer portal. They had 8 other guys in the transfer portal ranked higher than him. So this was not a shoo-in that Adai Maurer was going to be a star for Michigan. They had guys who did not do anything in college basketball this year. Some guys that were good, but maybe not as impactful as him ahead of him. So we gotta be real when we talk about, transfer portal is just throwing money at guys and that's it. No, Dusty May trusted his evaluation of Adai Maurer coming out of high school, and the little bit maybe he saw from him at UCLA, despite he could not get burned on an average UCLA team, and said, no, I think he will work here. And it worked out. He didn't listen to the Chapel Hill, message boards that all wanted to, with pitchforks, get Elliot Cadeau out of there. He trusted his own evaluation, and Elliot Cadeau became a great player. He didn't listen to some of the character concerns that came with Yato Lendenborg, who was a star at UAB, but was playing in a smaller conference in the American, and had kind of a rough road to get to college basketball, and a lot of big programs maybe would have hesitated to take a shot on Yato Lendenborg. Again, not somebody who was considered a shoo-in to dominate the Big Ten. We didn't know. We had to check it out. We had to see what was going to happen. So I hate when they do that. I hate when they do the revisionist history thing of, he just took a bunch of guys who we all knew were great, and now they're great. Michigan was considered one of the favorites for sure to maybe do some good things this year, but it wasn't a shoo-in that they were going to be this dominant. Nobody knew that. It was ridiculous to consider that. Morris Johnson, again, he was the 4th best power forward. There were other guys who were ranked higher. It's a very talented team. These are all guys who, some of them, Cadeau and Maurer and Johnson, these guys were, high-end prospects as high school guys. But, again, we're not talking about this is Cam Boozer and, Cooper Flag. That's not what happened. And sometimes, people who maybe don't follow this stuff as closely, they're coming in helicopter in and being like, they just paid a bunch of people and then that's it. I'm like, no. Some of these guys didn't get as much time in their previous stops. Some of these guys are a lot bigger question marks. We didn't know for sure what they were going to get from some of these guys. So no, that was ridiculous. As my brother trying to call me. Hopefully you don't call me again. Sorry for me being a little distracted there. My brother tried to call me live. This is what happens when I do a live show. You get calls from people as they are working. Let me see if I can tell my brother Sham, hey, don't call me. Streaming live. Let me just text him real quick. But no, I don't I just, that was the only misnomer that, and now I don't want to pick on that one guy. I don't even remember his name, so I don't want to give him any more heat, because he got a lot of heat for it. That's not my point. I'm using him as a larger point because I've heard that said by a lot of these teams. People were saying it about the Miami Hurricanes, and same thing. They just got a lot of money and they just bought the best roster. It's people didn't know Keontae Scott was going to be a top 40 NFL prospect when the Canes got him in the transfer portal. He was a pretty good to above average nickel corner at Auburn. And then he comes, sometimes it's like, again, evaluating the guy's talent and seeing he's being misused, or maybe he's just not happy or whatever, and knowing how you can get the most out of their abilities. That is coaching. Like, that is good coaching. I'm tired of people trying to make this out to be this thing like, oh, well, these coaches actually aren't as good as coaches in the past because they can just change their roster over every year. I think it's actually makes it a lot harder to coach. So just to say, Dusty May, Dan Hurley, these guys deserve more credit for what they're doing during the transfer portal era, not less credit. So that's just what I wanted to say before we moved on here. But congrats to Michigan. Hail to the victors. Hail to the Fab Five. I'm happy they got to be there to see them win. I actually think that, because remember the last time there was some long-standing beef between Jalen Rose and Chris Webber. I guess, Chris Webber was still very salty about some of the things that happened with Michigan. And Jalen Rose, despite all the controversy regarding the Fab Five and, I guess, money that was paid and NCAA sanctions and those things, Jalen Rose, I think, was probably among the first to really fully embrace the school again and rep the school. And I think there may have been some critical comments back and forth between Rose and Webber for several years. So the last time they were in the Final Four, I think they didn't sit next to each other. I think Webber was there, but he decided to sit in a different section, and it was all this tension, and it was all weird. I think it's apropos that when they're all finally united, they're all on great terms. But I think any basketball fan feels like that's a great thing to see, a great sight. I think it's apropos that is when they win a national championship. That was appropriate. They could not win it, as much as it would have been great for Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr. to win a national championship. I'm sure Michigan would have loved that. Everything wasn't right in the household, right? If your household's not right, sometimes things don't fall in line the way they're supposed to. So they didn't win that championship with those guys, even though the Fab Five was trying to make a little bit of a comeback. It's still such a regret for me that Chris Webber is not in the Fab Five documentary, one of the best 30 for 30s that ESPN has. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's already done. But, it was really cool to see them there this weekend, and it was great to see them, be able to get that championship and those guys to see the school back up and those guys to be so involved in the school. Juwan Howard recently was fired as their head coach, so it makes it a little awkward, but, whatever. He's always going to be a Michigan legend, so it was really nice to see those guys celebrate their championship, the second title in men's basketball for Michigan. So staying with men's basketball here, men's college basketball, big news and shocking news came down yesterday. That is that former Denver Nuggets head coach Michael Malone will be the next head coach for the North Carolina Tar Heels. When I tell you I was pretty stunned when I heard this, and a lot of things don't really surprise me, but this one really surprised me. So Michael Malone, of course, was the former head coach with the Denver Nuggets. Highly successful head coach. He won an NBA title with the Denver Nuggets. They were a perennial playoff team, a perennial Western Conference contender. And he did not get hired in this past cycle after being fired in the NBA by the Nuggets. And I think most people assumed he was going to be lined up for whatever his next NBA job would be. No one thought that this would be an college job he would take, but it is North Carolina. It is a huge job. It is one that is going to pay him quite handsomely. According to ESPN, he's going to make $8.3 million per year, and this is a 6-year deal for Michael Malone. That is a huge number. His daughter plays volleyball at North Carolina, so apparently that there's a little bit of a connection there, and then he was recommended by a search committee that was led by Steve Newmark, their associate athletic director, and director of athletics Bubba Cunningham. That was the statement that was made. So that was the tie to North Carolina, was that Michael Malone's daughter was there. I'll be honest, I'm actually a little concerned about that. I'm not naive enough not to know what college sports is like, and they love you today. They think you're gonna turn around life, and it's gonna be amazing for you, but lose on a Thursday night to Virginia, or lose a Sunday afternoon road game to NC State, and get back to me on how much it was great that Michael Malone is there and his daughter is there, and like I'm a little worried that like I don't want anything to happen to her in terms of just because that's just college athletics. It's just reality. So I kind of saw that as like, wow, that's why they did this. Like that could be turned on its head in a negative way, super fast. But nonetheless, he is their head coach. I will say this: I have been very high on Michael Malone as a head coach. I've put it on social media multiple times that I have hoped that he would be the head coach of the Knicks at some point in time. He's a Queens guy. He has some Catholic high school league ties too, so there's that. And I also think he's a fine head coach. I like the way he talks about his team. I like the way he challenges his teams. He's a very good offensive coach. I just think he's a very good coach. I really do. And I'm not surprised he won a championship. So I've been very high on Michael Malone for a very long time. I was stunned that he got fired by the Nuggets. I learned why, and I was like, okay, but still stunned nonetheless. I don't know about this fit. And there has become some legitimate concerns about whether or not NBA coaches work on the college basketball level. We've seen guys who have not gotten a lot of opportunities to be NBA head coaches try to go to college, and the returns have not been good. I just mentioned Juwan Howard, who's a longtime NBA assistant, got his first opportunity as a head coach in college. I can talk about Patrick Ewing, a longtime NBA assistant, got his first opportunity as a head coach in college. There are several examples of these guys who people assume, well, they coached in the NBA. And it's not even a crazy assumption. I kind of understand it. Like, yeah, an NBA coach who, like, knows NBA principles and stuff, like, why wouldn't he be able to be awesome in college? It just seems to be a disconnect. Mike Woodson at Indiana, right? That's another recent example. It just haven't been good returns. It's not to say that there can never be good returns. Eric Musselman was a guy who was an NBA guy that became a very good college basketball coach. I know things aren't necessarily the greatest at USC, but he had a lot of success at Nevada and at Arkansas. And there are plenty of examples of guys who have been. But it just feels like the whole I've only been in the NBA my entire life, and I'm gonna go to college and be fine. It just hasn't worked out that great. So as high as I am on Mike Malone, I do have questions about, all the things that are different about college basketball compared to the NBA. And I know that there are a lot of similarities now because there is NIL. And because of NIL, there is the negotiation aspect and there is the managing a budget/salary cap aspect. So there are some similarities that are becoming more similar. But Michael Malone was not a general manager, number one. So that's not something he's has any experience with. So again, some of that stuff is a little like, some of that stuff I think is there. Some of that stuff is not quite as applicable as people keep making out to be. All right, well, he deals with guys that get paid in the NBA. Now guys can get paid in college. I'm like, but does he have experience actually putting together rosters and managing how much this guy is worth and that guy is worth? Like, they don't have that. Like, the GM to do all that stuff. Like, they draft players, so I guess, in theory, like, they can talent evaluate, and they trade for guys, and I'm sure there are guys who they say, I would love to have this guy, and like that stuff. Maybe from that standpoint in transfer portal, I can see a little bit. But I'm not sold that he's going to be able to manage NIL correctly and know which guys need to be paid and which guys should not be paid as much. There's no evidence of that. And I've not seen evidence from any other former NBA coach that's then come to college that has figured this landscape out. So I have a little concerns about that. I'm surprised that North Carolina, given its stature as a program, had to get an NBA guy. Like, I'm shocked that they couldn't get some high-end, successful college basketball coach who knows the ins and outs of how to be successful in college basketball. I'm shocked that none of them would take the Carolina job. That probably tells me that North Carolina is in some really lean years right now. I don't know what Hubert Davis did that made this job so, not as appealing maybe to some of these other coaches, but it's clear that that's had to have been what happened. We saw Dusty May say, I'm not taking the job. Tommy Lloyd said, I'm not taking the job. Nate Oates had signed a contract extension. All these guys signed contract extensions. And the guys that were left, you're talking about, Scott Drew. And I don't want to diss Scott Drew. He has a national championship, but it's been a while before he's won anything significant. We were talking about Scott Drew and the dude from Iowa, who he didn't even see that Geno win the job. I'm like, these are the guys that turned him down, or these are the guys that North Carolina may have to settle for. It seems strange. So I don't know about Malone in this fit. And to be honest, if I was a Carolina fan, I also would be a little bit alarmed that we just saw this athletic department decide to take a college sports novice in Bill Belichick and make him their football coach, and how disastrous that has been. That would also concern me. Say what you want about Michael Malone, how great he is, and I think he's great. He doesn't hold a candle to Bill Belichick's resume as an NFL head coach. And that is going about as bad as it can go. Like, it's not good. There have only been negative headlines. There has not been much winning. It has not been the boost to the program that they thought it would be outside of the first week. Basically, it was essentially like it was all this hoopla for the first week. And then we learned, they suck. And then there was no interest in North Carolina. They were basically a nothing burger, except for Page 6 stories about Jordan Hudson or, Bill Belichick not making the Hall of Fame and stuff like that. It was all nonsense. It had nothing to do with Carolina football. I know Carolina football is nothing like Carolina basketball. They live and die Carolina blue down there when it comes to their hoops. And that is a sport that they care about the most in that region and in that area. But again, you just tried the pro coach thing and it failed. I mean, Michael Malone does not have some 23-year-olds running around running the program, I think. So I think he'll probably be better off from that standpoint. But that's bizarre to me, that you would have done the Belichick thing. It's clearly not working out. And you said, let's double down. Let's do this again with the basketball team. Unless you just felt like you had no choice. Again, unless you felt like he was clearly the best option of the guys that they had. Do I think Mike Malone has no chance to succeed? No. I think that, again, he's a very talented head coach. He knows basketball. If they get him the right players, I think that he can succeed. But I think he is going to learn very quickly. There is an adjustment. The adjustment to how you deal with younger people. I know college athletes are becoming older now. But in general, how you deal with younger people compared to maybe some of the guys you deal with in the NBA in terms of how you talk to them. Like Michael Malone was known to be very aggressive with how he ripped his pro athletes and those different things. Can't necessarily rip college basketball players like that anymore, especially when free agency is every year and they can leave in a heartbeat. So Michael Malone, I think some of his tenor, I think is going to have to adjust a little bit. I think just the ins and outs of just dealing with young people and the difficulties they deal with as young people is something that he's going to have to deal with. The NBA is young too. There are a lot of young guys as well, but it's a little different being on college campus, college issues, college environment. It's just all things that he's going to have to learn. And it's like, again, if you're Carolina, I just would have assumed you could have got somebody that didn't have to learn on the fly. That you would have to find somebody that would have been able to figure this landscape out. I'm curious about why him over Billy Donovan. It sounds today, and by the way, I'm doing this show just an hour after I think the Bulls had their press conference. It sounded a lot like Billy Donovan is staying as the Bulls head coach, which is just, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, the Chicago Bulls, you want to talk about becoming one of the most, for a story brand in sports to become so irrelevant. I don't know if there's another modern day example of that. I guess the Raiders, but at least the Raiders have Tom Brady involved, so I guess that they do create headlines. They are in our minds. We do think about them, even though they're still a terrible team. But think about other sports brands that are iconic, that are this. The Bulls cannot be more irrelevant. So they could have got word that Billy Donovan wasn't going to shake loose. They could have got word that Billy Donovan was going to remain Bulls head coach, so therefore they had to move to a different NBA coach. But Billy Donovan had success in college. He's one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time. I think you could have sold the Carolina faithful a little bit easier on him than Michael Malone. Now, Michael Malone's been a way better NBA head coach than Billy Donovan. But again, this is just about dealing with landscapes. Now, also, Billy has the thing that he didn't coach in the NIL era. So there's a huge adjustment he would have to make as well. But at least in terms of dealing with young people, motivating young people, knowing what's like having to be in high school gyms and evaluating high school players, like those are things that Billy Donovan knows how to do. These are just not things that Michael Malone's been asked to do at any point really in his career. So we're gonna see, man. If I had to lean, will this be more of a success or more of a failure? I would lean that this is not gonna end that well. It just doesn't. It never ends well with these NBA guys. It never is harsh, but it typically recently has not ended very well. I hate to say that because I really like Michael Malone, but this job seems a little odd. I'll be real, but I mean, I love that this happened. I think this is a great story. Like, you want to talk about getting a coach that has some juice. Like, this does have juice in terms of like, okay, Carolina. Like, I'm very fascinated in seeing what Carolina is under Michael Malone. I like these games against Duke are going to be fun. I saw Coach K is already throwing shade because I think he was on Pat McAfee, and they asked him about what do you think about Carolina hiring Michael Malone. He's like, well, they hired a Super Bowl winning coach to coach football, and last time I saw it, we beat them in football. So let's see how this goes. Which I love that Coach K, forget about, respect to the pantheon of elite coaches of all time. He just didn't care about taking a shot at Bill Belichick because he is wearing Carolina blue now. So this is going to be one of the more interesting stories to follow. I'm curious to see how North Carolina does in the transfer portal. That could have been some motivation to get this deal done because now Michael Malone can attack the transfer portal. How invested has he been in watching college basketball? Like, has he been studying up for this job? Is he ready for this job? I don't know if he interviewed for this. Does he have players in mind that he knows he wants to go after? I'm sure because a lot of these guys are represented by agents, he'll have some connections because he has an agent, obviously, and he's probably familiar with some of these agencies given his NBA days. I'm sure he'll have a leg up, and he'll be able to, at the very least, have some ties to some guys, and some people will certainly try to send some guys over there. This was a surprise. I'll be real. This was a big surprise here. 40 Days and Counting with your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live on YouTube, X, and Instagram. My guy Bob Custer in Nevada. Greetings, EJ. Are you really live? Yes, Bob. This is a live stream broadcast. I don't know how invested you've been, how close you've been following, but I've been doing these shows every Tuesday and every Friday. So every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, doing a live stream, just like I did with 40 Days and 40 Nights. Every Friday at 8 a.m., I'm doing a live stream. So instead of 2 a day, it's going to be 2 a week with these 40 Day and Counting episodes. These will be Tuesday, 6 p.m., Friday, 8 a.m. But yes, Bob, I am indeed live. And good to have you back in the chat, buddy. Miss talking to you. MAP_65 giving me the peace sign. Yo, what's up, Michael? Thanks for watching the show. Really appreciate you. Spencer Seeks watching on YouTube. Happy March mildness is over. Sad for 30 days of the NFL. I don't know if that was meant to be a typo, daft, but I'm assuming he means draft. Did he not? Spencer, did you not like the March Madness? I thought March Madness was good. And then there's been a lot of dialogue like, we didn't have no Cinderellas. Like, I mean, we had some buzzer beaters. We had some great games. We had some, the Final Four maybe wasn't like there were no barn burners, which is probably a little bit unfortunate. But they weren't the Arizona-Michigan game was unwatchable, but both UConn games were not unwatchable. They were fine. So I don't know if you meant March Madness and that was a typo, or if you meant mildness. I assume you mean mildness. You saying sad for 30 days of the NFL draft? Well, no, we got NBA playoffs is right around the corner. Spencer, what are you talking about? NBA playoffs. We got the NHL playoffs. Major League Baseball has started. That's always fun. And you got the Masters, I think is this week, I want to say. I saw Rory McIlroy was talking about the dinner that they're doing for the Masters, and the menu is out. He was asked about it because it was not, typically, the menu for the players' dinner is supposed to, represent, something about their culture or their personality or something. So it was noted in the people who were looking at the menu. They were like, not a lot of Irish food. He was like, yeah, not a lot of Irish food because at the end of the day, I want to eat this food too. Which is kind of like, I guess, an obvious shot at Irish food. I have to see if I can pull up the menu so you can actually see for yourselves what the menu was. But It both the question: can you diss the food from your own area? Is that like something you can do? I don't know if you can do that. I feel like a no. I'll be honest, like there's not much I know about Irish food really. Like that, to be honest, I know I'm assuming it's definitely a lot of potatoes, right, and stuff like that. But it's not something. It's not known as like the most delectable. It's not Italian. It's not French. It's not like there's some classic cuisines that we know and love, and I don't think of Irish as one of them. But still, can you diss your own place? I don't know. I thought that was a little funny. But yeah, so we got the Masters coming up. I'm gonna show you guys this menu real quick. It looked good, by the way. Like if you're going to the Masters, I think you're doing something with the Masters. I feel like you should be pretty excited. So here's the menu here. This is gonna be the menu served at. Oops, oh, and I messed that up. Let me try it again. Here we go. This is the menu that's gonna be served at the Masters this year. Sorry, try that one more time. Here we go. Okay. So this is the club dinner, right? So you got appetizers, peach ricotta flatbread, rock shrimp tempura. Anybody knows me knows shrimp is my favorite food, so I'm already in. Bacon wrapped dates. I love bacon wrapped anything, and bacon wrapped dates are always good. Goat cheese, ooh, that sounds good. Grilled elk sliders. I don't know if I've had elk. Okay, so that's it. So you got yellowfin tuna as the first course. As a carpaccio, so that's a little bit of a interesting tuna carpaccio. Never heard it like that. There's also some foie gras in there as well. Your main course, you got some filet mignon. Who doesn't like some wagyu steak? Who doesn't like some seared salmon? And a sticky toffee pudding. I mean, sounds delicious. I don't know if people complaining about not enough Irish food. I think you should feel happy about that plate. That sounds really good. So, but yeah, you got the Masters. You got Indy 500 coming up soon, I think. Like, you got a bunch of things going on. How are you going to diss this time of the year? I know March Madness is over. That's sad. But the NFL draft is going to be great. There's plenty of stuff to be excited about. This to me is my favorite time in the sports calendar. I think spring is the best. So much stuff. I know people love fall because all the stuff with football. But, like, you got football in spring, too, because of the draft. The draft is a big part of the football calendar. And then you got all this other stuff going on, whereas football just takes over everything. So, anyway, it's my 2 cents on the calendar. But shout out to Spencer Seeks. Good to see you in the YouTube chat as well. Again, if you want to get in the chat, ask any questions, say what's up to your boy, let me know, and let's get into the chat. Let's talk about it. So, let's keep it moving here, though. ESPN exposes the fractured relationship between Bucks and star Giannis Antetokounmpo. They came out with an article today. This was a Shams Charania special, really kind of highlighting what has been a disastrous year for the Milwaukee Bucks and what is becoming the impending exit of Giannis Antetokounmpo. That feels like the slowest breakup in the history of sports. This feels like a 2 to 3 year breakup where we've first heard Giannis being like, well, if they don't show that we're a winner, then I don't know what I'm going to do. And somehow we've done this now for 3 years. But it's starting to get now like a little more bizarre because of an investigation that's going on regarding Giannis and his ability to play and the Bucks trying to potentially hold him out. Giannis essentially ratting on his team about anti-tanking measures or tanking measures that they're taking. So this has gotten very bizarre, and a lot of stuff was detailed in this article. It's been a locker room that's been fractured. It's been a locker room that has felt like Giannis has been 1 foot in and 1 foot out. He had told the team in the offseason that he thought it was time for them to shift gears and maybe move forward, which is why he told them that he was interested in playing for the New York Knicks. Once the Knicks trade didn't happen, he tried to lock in, but the team quickly showed that they were not championship caliber. They made some major concessions to try to make this thing tenable. They cut Damian Lillard and stretched his contract, which was a terrible decision. You want to talk about organizational malpractice. One of the worst front office moves I think I've seen in the NBA in the last 10 years. To amnesty Damian Lillard's max contract to carry $20 million of dead money through 2030 is completely irresponsible and insane. And that's what they're staring at right now because of that decision to bring in, of everybody, Miles Turner. who has not played well for them this year, who's not had the kind of impact they've had, and now he's signed long term on a team that's probably going to have to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo in a matter of a couple of months. So this has been pretty rough all around. Again, we had the conversations that happened in the offseason, conversations that were resumed in January, where Sham says multiple lead sources said Antetokounmpo and his agent Alex Aratis took a step further in pursuit of an amicable split. In January, 2 weeks before the deadline, they met with team owners Jimmy Haslam and Wes Edens about how the Bucks should, quote, do right by Antetokounmpo. The player and agent recalled a handshake agreement that ownership and high-ranking officials made to trade him collaboratively should the time come after Antetokounmpo signed extensions with the organization in 2020 and 2023. Shortly after that meeting, Antetokounmpo and GM John Horst talked at the team's practice facility, and Horst indicated he was working on trade negotiations. Horst told Antetokounmpo he might not be on the roster by the start of the 2026-2027 season. Now, no trade obviously happened. They were engaged with several teams. The teams that were engaged, according to Shams, felt like the conversations were real, be it the Timberwolves, the Heat, and the Golden State Warriors. But the Bucks weren't the most responsive. Like, at times, it took them days to get back from the Bucks in terms of hearing from them about whether or not they were interested in the packages they were offering. It seems like the Heat were the team that were the closest to maybe coming up with a deal. They had offered a package that included Tyler Hero and their big Kelly Ware, but they elected not to make that move. Some teams thought the price were too high. The Cavs were not interested in giving up Evan Mobley. The Sixers were not interested in giving up VJ Edgecombe in those negotiations. So that's why those deals didn't happen. So now he's still here, but then there's been all this crowing, right? Because they've been trying to have some level of chemistry on the team, even though the team sees all of this drama happening behind the scenes, and that has led to, again, a fractured locker room, a team that doesn't play together or doesn't play well at all. It's also a team that just doesn't have much talent, and B, is led to now friction regarding how they move forward with Giannis for the rest of this year, especially after they did not trade him, which is why it was so stupid. The Bucks did all this spiking of the football and end zone celebrations when it turned out Giannis wasn't being traded. And I thought a lot of some of the Bucks faithful and their fans and some of the people that cover the team and follow the team, and I thought some of their chest pumping and chest bumping about, see, you guys didn't have a clue. Giannis is going to be here, and he's going to be here forever. I thought some of that was very it was a very it was misguided. It was premature, because not trading him was only going to be a temporary thing, and it seems like all the stuff about, well, they're all good and the relationship's good, like, the relationship is clearly not good. The relationship is clearly terrible, and it is stemmed from how bad they've played as a unit, and then what has happened with this investigation that the NBA has launched regarding the Bucks' plan to shut down Giannis Antetokounmpo. So he hyperextended his knee. He suffered a knee bruise. This was on March 15th. He's already had calf issues all season, so the Bucks wanted to sit him out the rest of the year. According to sources, believing it benefited both sides, as it preserved his health and allowed the team to prioritize a higher pick. But Giannis would not oblige. He refused to be shut down. He felt healthy enough to play against on March 17th. Multiple sources say he pushed to play against the Jazz, told him he believed he was healthy. The Bucks overruled him, and their medical staff did not clear him to play. Bucks then told multiple people around the team that he hoped to play later in the road trip, but again, he never returned to action. And that's when the NBAPA put out this statement about how the Bucks were tanking, and this is damaging the integrity of the league by not allowing Giannis Antetokounmpo to get down the court. Mind you, the Bucks are like so far away from playoff contention. Like, there's nothing. Like, their season is over, and yet now Giannis has gotten the labor union behind him to push narratives against the Milwaukee Bucks, saying that they are hurting the integrity of the league by not playing him in these meaningless games. the NBA was forced because of the statement to put out an investigation. They had to interview Giannis. They interviewed the team. They interviewed the team doctors. All of this for a guy who claims to want to leave things amicably and wants to not show up the Bucks in any way and not embarrass the team or embarrass the organization or embarrass the city. Like, everything about Giannis has been essentially not wanting to do what these other guys have done, which is just like throw the team under the bus if they have to and get the hell out of the city they're in currently so they can get traded. But James Harden's been a master at this. Kyrie Irving's been a master at this. There have been several athletes who have shown that when they are unhappy, they want to move, they know the right levers to pull to eventually get a team to get them out of there. You know, Giannis, because of how much he values his relationship with the city and he values his legacy with the Bucks, he has apparently never wanted to do that. But then he's doing all this nonsense. Like, he's doing this nonsense where he's saying that he can play and he's not playing and it's disappointing him, even though I can't imagine there's one Bucks fan that wants to see him playing. I mean, I guess maybe the little kids that are going to see these games, maybe if you paid a ticket and you're planning to go anyway, maybe you're saying, all right, well, it'd be good to see Giannis play. But if you're a Bucks fan, it does not make sense for Giannis Antetokounmpo at this point in the season to be playing in meaningless games. It does not. It hurts your draft situation, and he's a star player who, if he's on your team next year and there's any hope that he's going to be around, it would make sense you want him fully healthy for next season. Or if you want him traded in the offseason, it would also be helpful that he doesn't suffer some severe injury because he's trying to play while he's hurt and hurt his trade value. So there's no intellectual reason for him to step out on the court for the Milwaukee Bucks this season, whether you want him there or not, whether he wants to stay or not. None of these things matter. And yet, this is what Giannis has done. He's really put the organization on Front Street in a way that it does look embarrassing. I mean, it's not embarrassing to anybody who is aware that it just doesn't make sense for them to play, but it's embarrassing just that these are headlines, right? The Bucks should be able to lose in anonymity and move forward, and he's not allowing them to do that. Which is why, I mean, to be honest, if I was a Bucks fan, I would have had enough of Giannis Antetokounmpo. If I was a Bucks fan, he won them a championship. He was an MVP twice. He is probably the greatest Buck ever between him and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But this has become such a circus that I can't imagine you'd want him around. And I would probably be very PO'd at him about how he is handling his exit. Because it would have been a lot easier for this organization had he done what James Harden does or these other guys do, where you just simply say, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. This team can't win. Here are the teams I want to go to. Trade me to one of these teams, and let's do it by the start of the season or by the trade deadline, whenever he wanted to do that. If you would have done all that, you wouldn't have Miles Turner and all that money on your cap. You wouldn't have stretched the amnesty Damian Lillard. You probably would have a lot more draft picks, a lot more draft capital than you're going to get in the offseason, because he would not have dealt with all these injuries and all this circus that has allowed him to become a year older, a year more broken down. Like, all these things in the long run, for him, quote unquote, looking out for the organization and by not requesting a trade, has actually hurt the organization. Which is why I'd be so fed up and just be done with him. He's never going to be like a villain. Like, he's again the greatest player the team has ever had. It's not, some things don't have to be so black and white where it's like, oh, well, to burn his jersey. Like, it's not that. But he is hurting the organization. Everything he's doing this year is hurting the organization. This will he, won't he, this not making it clear where he wants to go or if he wants to leave. Now this, I should be playing in non-playoff games, non-meaningful games. My team is out of contention, when for the Bucks, the best thing for their future is for them to get as good a draft pick as possible. There are some complications about their pick because there's a swap that's going to go down with the Pelicans, so it's going to be a little weird. But nonetheless, regardless of how that goes, it's still most important for the Bucks to make sure they have as good a pick as possible, which means him going out there and winning some meaningless games doesn't do much for them. You'd prefer you go and lose these games or win, maybe getting to evaluate some of these younger guys, than to deal with a guy who has already said, according to Sean Sharania multiple times, that he believes his time with the Bucks is over. So why is he doing all this? I don't really understand. I don't really get it. I don't know. It feels to me that I think that this is him issuing a little payback to the Bucks. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo, because it's what was revealed during this investigation so far, is he keeps saying, I can play. And the team apparently said, all right, well, you're coming back from injury. Let's give you some time. Let's help you rehab. And let's have you play some 3-on-3. And he said, no, I'm not playing 3-on-3. I'm not playing. He refused, apparently. Oh, well, if you're trying to show that you're healthy enough to play, why are you refusing rehab assignments to play 3-on-3 basketball to show that you're ready to play? He don't really want to play for this team. I think he's pissed off. I think he's pissed off that he didn't get traded during the offseason. I think he's pissed off that he didn't get traded during the trade deadline. And I think he now feels like the Bucks are using what he believes is his goodwill and his kindness against him. Because he's not come out and said, John Horst is a liar and I will never play for a team that John Horst ever manages again, like we saw with James Harden and the two kids in China. We're talking about Daryl Morey. Like, because he's not doing that stuff, I think he probably feels like the Bucks are kind of, slow walking this thing, that they're kind of, dragging their feet and making a move, which, by the way, also would be stupid by the Bucks. The earlier you trade this guy, the better. Every day that goes by, well, they should have traded him in the offseason. They got the right moves and they had the offers to move him. But to keep waiting means that he gets more injury prone, he gets more hurt. There's a possibility that he may feel like he wanted to get traded during this trade deadline, so he could have signed that for that Supermax extension that now he can't sign for. He's going to be able to sign for a lot of money. He's going to be eligible for 4 years, $275 million, but it's not going to be the $300 million that was coming to him if he would have been traded before the trade deadline. So that, I think, could be some of this where he's like, yo, I wanted to get traded so I can get all this money. Now I'm losing money. Whether I sign with you or I sign with somebody else, I'm losing money. I think that he's PO'd that he has not been traded yet. I think he feels like I should have been moved a long time ago. I've made it clear that I should be moved, and because I'm not being a jerk about it, they're taking advantage of me. The reality is, Giannis, you're a commodity. You sell tickets. You are the most valuable person in the organization. And unless you force their hand and make it untenable for them to keep you around, because you said that you publicly say that you're not going to be a Milwaukee Buck and you do not want to continue with this team anymore, then you still give them all the cards. That's just how the NBA works. And I guess I understand a little bit his trepidation, not want to be the bad guy, but I just think that people at this point in understanding the league are mature enough to understand what's going on. Like, if you had to demand a trade to get out of there, people would get it. You won them a championship. You've given them playoff success. You've done all you can do in this situation. Now it just feels like you're being petty, and now you're hurting the fans. Because this hurts the fans. To be like, I'm going to drag the team into a tanking investigation that could result in them potentially losing draft picks. They think that the Bucks are lying to them. And I'm going to push to play in these meaningless games so I can win some games for the Bucks when they're trying to secure the best draft pick and ensure that you're healthy moving forward, whether you're playing for them or someone else. Now you're actually hurting the fans who are going to be invested in the Bucks long after your career is over. So if Giannis wants to not be the bad guy, he should think about that as opposed to thinking about, well, if I demand a trade, people are going to hate me. No, I would hate him a lot more for doing this stuff. This is getting ridiculous. So what I ended up seeing was happening. Apparently, the Bucks had told, Kuzma and Miles Turner that they weren't going to be, unless the guy was injured, there was not going to be an expectation that they would be shut down early for the season. But Giannis was not told that. And at the end of the day, like, Kuzma and Miles Turner aren't determining whether or not the Bucks winning games. They've been there all year and they've been awful. Giannis does. And again, winning games is not of the most importance for them right now. One of the funny things from this story that was quite fascinating was Doc Rivers' role just kind of on this team and in this whole situation. And this has been a miserable year. And the Bucks have played in a very uninspired brand of basketball. And Doc Rivers' time as Bucks head coach is probably coming to an end. I think there's a chance that you could be seeing a retirement soon. But he has not done a good job since he got there. This has definitely been his worst coaching job. You'll remember, he took over for Adrian Griffin, who was a first-year coach who had the Bucks at 30-13 before the team seemed to turn on him. I don't know, they were talking to the front office, and Doc came involved as like an advisor. I don't know if he was talking to the front office and figuring out maybe a way to get into this job at some point. But whatever the case may be, Adrian Griffin had this team at 30-13 through 43 games. On pace to potentially win 60 games that season. I mean, any first-year coach wins 60 games, you're like, well, that's a great job, right? And he got fired. He got fired after 43 games. That was it. And Doc Rivers was installed. Doc Rivers has been the head coach now for the Milwaukee Bucks for the last several years. And considering they had a nearly 70% winning percentage with Adrian Griffin, you're probably thinking, all right, well, what happened with Doc Rivers? Doc Rivers, as Milwaukee Bucks head coach, has a 49% winning percentage. He is 96-100 in his 3 years there. To finish that season, that first year, he finished 17-19. Last year, in his first full season with the Bucks, they were 48-34, and they were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. This year, they were 31-47, and will not make the playoffs this year. They have not won a playoff series with Doc Rivers as their head coach. So this is not going well there. And he has had trouble relating to this team and getting this team to play, again, a connected style of basketball. But it's not behooved him or not stopped him from trying to get the team to buy in and trying to get the team to understand what he potentially could do for these players. And it involved something that only Doc Rivers could do when it comes to what you would expect for how he would try to motivate his players. Because like I said before, Doc Rivers has kind of famously been dubbed the spin doctor on Maggie and Perloff show because he is this guy that always seems to find an excuse for his shortcomings. I lost this 3-1 series because of that. And, we didn't do well because of this. I don't know if Ben Simmons is a NBA championship point guard. Like, we call him the spin doctor. His name is Doc. We call him the spin doctor because this guy will spin his failures into someone else's fault or somehow the media not understanding the full story. That is what this guy does. And we know he does it to the media. I don't think we 100% knew he does this to his own players, but that is what we learned in this article by Shams Charania. So here was what we learned about Doc Rivers, and I'll show you this quote here. So this was, and I'm going to minimize it so you can see me a little bit in this as well. So this was the excerpt from the article that got a lot of attention that I thought was quite hilarious. I'm going to read this to you right here for those who maybe can't read because maybe it's too small. Assuming this will come up. I'm trying to get it to open up, and now it doesn't want to open. Let's see. Double click one more time. Okay, that's not happening. Let me read it over here, though. The morning after the Bucks, here we go. Finally, the morning after the Bucks had turned a double-digit lead into a blowout road loss in Chicago on March 1st, Rivers called a team meeting. If the Bucks were to rally into a play-in spot, this week was most crucial. The Bucks next faced a shorthanded Boston Celtics team in Milwaukee on a back-to-back set on March 2nd before a pivotal contest. Rivers, who won an NBA title as a coach of the Celtics in 2028 and will be enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame later this year, started the meeting by imploring his players to look up his resume. 6 people in the room told ESPN. I took teams to the playoffs and to the championship that weren't supposed to. I thought this was one of them. Either you're with us or against us. If you're not playing hard, we're not playing you anymore. Apparently, this was a message to Kyle Kuzma because he was the guy that ended up not getting some playing time immediately after that. They started showing him screwing up stuff in the film session, and he has seemed to be the whipping boy for Doc Rivers, according to this article. There was a time where he tried to say some words of encouragement to Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter, who were the team's guards, who are talented scorers but are kind of shoot first guards. And Doc was imploring them that they gotta, play more team ball. And in a players only meeting, Kuzma was like, "Hey man, I know he's hard on you guys, but don't listen to the coaches. Don't worry about that. Play your game." Doc apparently learned that he said that and then benched him the next day. So Kuzma has been to no surprise of anybody, has been a wild card in this situation. But this apparently was a message to the whole team, but a message to Kyle Kuzma as well. But Doc Rivers going with the look up my resume. Doc Rivers going to the Google me when it comes to his trying to get his team motivated to show what he has accomplished as an NBA head coach, I think is quite hilarious. Doc Rivers has had success as an NBA head coach. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's he's some terrible bum. He's never done anything well. People do that with guys who haven't won championships. Doc has won one. Like, even guys who are flawed. Like, I listen, George Karl seems kind of like I'm trying to use my words carefully. He has presented himself as kind of a crotchety guy. And therefore, and he is not won a title. So sometimes when we talk about George Karl, and he's a flawed head coach, like he has not communicated well with players, like there's been all this with George Karl. But he has been very successful. He has won a lot of games. And sometimes when we talk about these coaches, it's like we don't want to give them any love and any respect. You know, Mike D'Antoni is going to go to the Hall of Fame. I think it's extremely well-deserved, even though he wasn't the greatest Knicks head coach. He's an extremely successful NBA head coach, even if he did not win a championship. It's like, well, he doesn't play coach defense. All right, well, like, yes, he didn't coach defense, but he won a million basketball games. So he knows what he's doing. And he's worthy of being in the Hall of Fame, just like Doc is worthy of being in the Hall of Fame, despite all the shortcomings. But the fact that even he is trying to spin his resume to his team to be like, you guys don't clearly understand how great a coach I am. You guys got to go on that Google machine and look up what I've done. And I did see a lot of funny tweets where people were like, so they're like, hey, coach, I Googled you. You're really the only coach to lose a series up 3-1 with 3 different organizations. Or, hey, coach, I looked you up. Wait, did you actually screw up signing Tim Duncan when you had the opportunity when you were in Orlando? Like, I've seen some of the funniest tweets about Doc Rivers telling people to Google him, people learning about his coaching resume. Because, yes, he's won a lot, but there are a lot of very ugly moments in Doc Rivers' coaching resume. That's just, if you coach long enough, that everybody's having. But he has a great share of them. For him to be like, hey, you guys don't clearly know who you're talking with and who you're dealing with. Google me. It's why this team sucks. Like, he should have never got this job. The Philly situation fell apart. He couldn't keep that team together, and his coaching career probably should have been over after that one. Like, he'd already gotten to coach the Clippers. That was a great job. He got to run the team for a little while, and he showed he couldn't do that, so they had to take him out of that role. And for a team that had all that talent and all these expectations, now there was some bad luck, there were injuries and stuff that always happens. Trust me, Doc Rivers will tell you all the excuses that they have. But nonetheless, they came up short, and they did not meet expectations twice, really, because it's 2 iterations of the Clippers, quote unquote, contender run that he had. He had, the run with Lob City, and then he had the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard era. Twice he failed with that group, and then he failed with the Sixers group. It probably should have been the end. He had coached at that point for 20 years or whatever. Like, he probably didn't need to be coaching another team contending for a title, but this guy always fails up. So somehow he failed up to a team that was had a 70% winning percentage. It was 17 games above 500 halfway through the season, and he cratered them. Because I think at this point in time, we've seen the shortcomings that Doc has as a coach, and he does not have the level of talent that he's had to overcome his shortcomings. And to him to say that, the problem that with you guys is you're not listening to me, and maybe if you Google my resume, you'll learn something. I mean, that just speaks to a guy who's so out of touch. And apparently this message angered players on the team, and he's not being able to connect with them. But I also say this, though. With all that being said, like, the spin doctor is going to spin doctor this, but this was, again, classic Doc Rivers to go this route, to say Google me. The Bucks deserve everything they are getting with the Doc Rivers era. Again, this has been a disaster with him as their head coach, but they deserve it all. Because they should have never fired Adrian Griffin. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've actually been really actually angered by an NBA coaching firing. That was one. I thought that was pathetic. Because that's a team that had championship aspirations. They decided to go. They fired Mike Budenholzer, who we all know Mike Budenholzer. He's in games kind of questionable, game management questionable, kind of doesn't seem to know when to make the right coaching adjustments mid-game to kind of improve their offense. It's a very much similar to Mike D'Antoni, kind of a read and react kind of offense, not many adjustments beyond how they play, their style of play. So, like, Mike Budenholzer got fired. He won you a championship. He got fired, and he got fired probably for good reason. Like, that first round loss to the Heat was awful. Like, he did a terrible job coaching that team. So he got fired. But you fired him. Like, you fired him and you gave someone else an opportunity who's a first-year coach. You give a first-year coach an opportunity, there's going to be shortcomings. There's going to be a learning curve. That's just the nature of the beast with any job. But he was succeeding. They were winning. Maybe the players weren't the most happiest. Maybe they felt like, oh, he's a little grating. Or we haven't really ever gotten a clear say on what the issue was with Adrian Griffin. It seems like a combination of he was kind of a hard ass and maybe he wasn't as collaborative with the players. That seems to be kind of the conversation, but we'll never know for sure. You should have never fired that guy. He deserved an opportunity to learn how to be an NBA head coach. Those players who have now exposed themselves to be, for lack of a better term, like losers. Like they got this guy fired and they wanted Doc Rivers, and this is the effort now they're giving Doc Rivers. Like they've won a championship, and I don't mean Bobby Portis and Giannis, but some of these other guys who have won nothing on that team, who were talking about we gotta get the coach out of here, even though they didn't win a title, they're not part of the nucleus of the team that built themselves into being one of the preeminent franchises. And you listen to those guys, you deserve everything you get. You deserve to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. You deserve to have Doc Rivers not be able to connect to his player, tell him to Google him. Like you have asked for all of this. And then again, you fire that coach, and then your ace in the hole was to hire Doc Rivers, a guy who was underachieved with the last 3 jobs that he's had. He underachieved with the Clippers. He underachieved with the Sixers. He underachieved. So what are we doing? And then you want to say the Celtic job, okay, I said really last 2 jobs. This is the 3rd job now he's underachieved. But like with the Celtics, he won 1 title. It's great you win a championship. Nobody will take it away from you, and it's hard to win NBA championships. But 1 title with the Big 3. And then Rondo made it a Big 4 because he became an all-world point guard. 1 NBA championship. And that was your ace in the hole plan to fix the Bucks. Fix a team that was 30-13. You deserve everything that has happened to you. I don't feel bad for the Bucks at all. I only feel bad for their fans. I feel bad for their fans when it comes to how Giannis is treating the organization. And I feel bad for the fans that they got saddled with Doc Rivers. Because a bunch of loser players who have now turned around and quit on Doc Rivers, quit on a coach who was 30-13, who was doing a good job. Like that's why I have no love for the Bucks and everything that they're doing. Like whatever they have, like that's on them. Their organization, they've earned all this. But for the fans, if I was a Bucks fan, I'd say to be like, what the hell happened? Like we were a perennial Eastern Conference power. In 3 years, with Doc Rivers around, one of the worst teams in the NBA. How does that happen? Giannis has the NBA feds in our offices. Like what the bleep is going on? It's a terrible stretch for the Milwaukee Bucks. But Doc Rivers telling his players to Google me is quite hilarious. Dawn Staley now said she spoke with Geno Auriemma. They lost their national championship game to UCLA. Again, big shout out to UCLA women's team. Corey Close, their head coach. Lauren Betts, their star. Gabby Jaquez and Kiki Rice. They were phenomenal. I know I don't have a segment necessarily decades in them, but I watched that game. And it's been great to see UCLA and just watch that journey. I felt like, women's college basketball is at a high right now, but I felt like 2 or 3 years ago with Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, UConn, obviously Juju at USC, UCLA had put this great recruiting class together, and they were starting to come together to be one of the top teams. It was like, man, there is talent everywhere in college basketball. And of course, South Carolina will be one of the best teams. It just so but this was a young team, so I was like, oh well, let's see what they do. And it was kind of UCLA being on this stage in terms of being one of the top teams. They hadn't been this for a while, but it feels like we're really in a golden age of women's basketball. And I was like, man, this was awesome. So UCLA's been one of those teams that we saw, high ranking, high seedings, but wasn't able to beat LSU a couple years ago. Wasn't able to get to the Final Four last year. So they were knocking on the door with these young players, and this was their last chance with all these girls as seniors. So to see them win a national championship, it was. I thought, whether you're rooting for South Carolina or not, I thought it was really nice to see that team win, because this is a team you saw them put this together. Sometimes it doesn't always work out with a bunch of great recruits and saying, okay, let's see if this team are one go at it, because it's not like UConn where every year we're gonna have McDonald Americans left and right. Like they put together basically one class. And it's like, this is our one shot. Is that one shot with this group? Let's see if they could do it. And Lauren Betts, I know, had mental health concerns and issues earlier in his career. So, like, to see them come up like this, it was great. And they saved their best performance for that South Carolina game. They thoroughly destroyed South Carolina in that national championship game. Shocking, I thought. I know South Carolina's offense is not great, but I didn't expect them to get beat like that. So they won, and I want to give a major shout out to the UCLA women's basketball team because they deserve a lot of headlines and a lot of talk because they've had a great run. It's been great to see them come up in this way, and congrats to Coach Close. But when we talk about the other big storyline out of this Final Four was Dawn Staley versus Geno Auriemma, and it stemmed from this exchange that happened where South Carolina played UConn during the game, during the Final Four. During the game, Geno has a crash out during an interview with Doris Burke where he's complaining about referees not calling fouls and not seeing that one of his players' jerseys got ripped by a South Carolina player, and also not appropriately disciplining Dawn Staley for language and things she is saying to the referees during the game. And he's cursing, and like he's completely unhinged during this conversation. I don't know what Dawn Staley was saying during the game. I don't know what she was saying to the refs. I have no idea. But he mentioned his player's jersey, Cicely, his player, what's the name? Strong's jersey getting pulled and ripped. But then it turned out that she had actually ripped her own jersey out of frustration from, what was happening during the game, which was South Carolina's defense was absolutely hounding on UConn. She didn't get a foul call, or she lost the ball, and she just ripped her own jersey out of frustration. But Geno saw that and actually, pinned it on South Carolina had ripped their jersey, and this was a missed call by the referees, which is couldn't have been further from the truth. His own player ripped his jersey. So he's having this crash out during the game. He's upset that Dawn Staley is yelling all these things to these referees, which part of me is like, all right, what difference does it make? Like, you coach your team, she coaches hers, whatever. Again, Sarah Strong has a jersey ripped, but she later reveals she ripped it herself. And they lose this game. It's, again, a defensive masterclass. UConn was held to 31% shooting. They only scored 41 points, 48 points for the game. They come to the circle, the front, the middle circle, the half court mark to shake hands between Dawn and Geno. And Geno starts going on about, according to Dawn Staley, that, oh, you should have shook my hand before the game. You should have shook my hand before the game. Don't do this now and not do it before the game. And Dawn Staley's like, what the freak are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? And then now Dawn's pissed because now an altercation has started. Now he has started a verbal altercation. And again, this is Norristown, Pennsylvania, Philly suburb versus North Philly. So this is going to get 0 to 100 real quick. These are not two people that are going to back down from an argument. So now they're yelling at each other. They have to be separated, and it created a very embarrassing moment. I thought Geno Auriemma conducted himself like a complete clown. I thought it was one of the worst moments of his career to not be able to have the dignity to take what was a humbling loss, but it's just reality. It was a loss. To not be able to take a humbling loss and just go back to the locker room. And if you want to make a comment in the press conference about something you didn't like, okay, that's your prerogative. To make a scene at the midway point, right as the game is ending, to make this whole story about South Carolina, not about South Carolina winning a game and thoroughly kicking your ass, but about something Dawn Staley did before in a pregame, is freaking ridiculous and sounds like some middle school nonsense. Like, this is a guy that has countless national championships, countless undefeated seasons, the most decorated college basketball coach for women's of all time, and a pre-game handshake, it sends you into a tizzy, and you have to make a whole scene to essentially, again, take everything away from the South Carolina players and what they did and put it on a Dawn Staley handshake that didn't happen. You're a clown. That is so unbecoming of you and that program and what you've established. He should be ashamed of himself. That was a terrible look. So that happens. Geno ends up putting out an apology Saturday night. He does not mention Dawn Staley, but he does mention that he was wrong. And he mentions that he apologizes to the quote-unquote entire South Carolina staff and their players, but not Dawn by name. and that he realized that it was unbecoming of UConn and unbecoming of him, and that the focus needs to be on South Carolina moving forward. But nonetheless, there's this huge distraction. And there's no excuses. I don't want to make it sound like South Carolina got their doors blown off because this happened. They might have got their doors blown off anyway. But now you did create this huge distraction for a team that has another game, that is playing for a championship in a day, and like for you not getting a handshake. Now, Dawn Staley has come out now and said that she has now spoken to Geno Auriemma. During the broadcast of the game, the national championship game, you heard Rebecca Lobo say that Geno did reach out. They asked Dawn after the game if he reached out. She said, I have no idea. I have 500 text messages on my phone since that incident happened. One of them could be from Geno. I don't know. I didn't look. I've been focused only on UCLA. But she said in a statement earlier today, quote, I spoke with Geno and I want to be clear. I have a great deal of respect for him and what he's meant to this game. One moment doesn't define a career, and it doesn't change the impact he's had on growing women's basketball. The standard at UConn is what it is because of him. That's something this game has benefited from. So I'm asking everyone to turn the page. Let's focus on what matters most. Continuing to elevate our game, creating opportunities, and pushing it forward. That's always been my mission, and it's not changing. First of all, let's just give a round of applause to one Dawn Staley. Round of applause. Very classy response. She stuck her neck out from a little bit in a way that she didn't have to say that, not just, hey, I accepted his apology, but also I want everyone, because he's getting his back kicked in, as my good friend Ray Jarvis would say. Like, he's feeling it from everybody. To even go a step forward and say, hey, not only am I good, I got respect for Geno. I got no beef with Geno. But also, all you guys that are on him, let's stick it to positivity. Let's move on. This is over. Let's not dwell on this thing, and that's it. It's a classy move. And Dawn Staley has been only a class act since she had been the head coach of South Carolina. I think that's one of the things that's been really admirable watching Dawn Staley and this growth from her as a head coach. I remember watching Dawn Staley as a player. I watched her in the WNBA playing for the Charlotte Sting. I was a huge WNBA fan as a kid. So I was very familiar with Dawn Staley's story and who she was as a player. And to see someone I watched as a player become an iconic head coach is crazy to me. As someone who's a star player to become an iconic coach is crazy to me. But I think she deserves a lot of credit for that statement. That was a really, again, classy statement. Again, she didn't have to put out the, hey, let's leave Geno alone. She did that because it was the right thing to do. So I'm happy that she did. And I think she's right. Like, I think beyond today, I don't think we need to continue to keep crushing Geno Auriemma. I think Geno Auriemma, and the next time he has an interview or something, he should still mention Dawn Staley. Like, he doesn't have to harp on the event anymore, but he should, he's going to do another public appearance. There's going to be another time we're going to hear from Geno Auriemma again. And he's going to be asked about it again. And what I don't want to hear from Geno Auriemma is that was in the past, and I'm just thinking about the future. No. You were very loud with your crash out, yelling about people having their jersey ripped when they ripped their own jersey, yelling about a handshake that you said didn't happen, even though there's video of Dawn Staley shaking your hand before the game. It just didn't happen at the time that you wanted it to happen, because he went on about some custom that they do at the Final Four, which is true. That, like, after the players are announced, the coaches get announced, and typically the coaches do this walk to center court, not center court, but the sideline near center court, and they shake hands. I've seen this before. There's video of them doing it last year. It's funny. It seemed like Dawn was late to get to him last year, and he kind of was doing this like weird thing. He's like, "Oh, are you gonna come?" And then eventually she got over there and hugged him. But otherwise, that was it. Like that was his thing. Like, oh, you shook my hand before, but not when it was supposed to, and therefore, I don't know what his idea was. What was in his head? And I don't want to do the ageist thing. I don't feel like I'm being ageist. But I saw a lot of this, and I did wonder, are we having a senior moment? Like, he's saying things are happening on the court that didn't. He's saying a handshake didn't happen, and it did, but just not at the time that he wanted to. Like, what are we doing here? Again, this feels like either someone in middle school or someone who, again, is having a senior moment. It was just a bad look. Overall bad look by Geno. Again, credit to Dawn Staley. I think she flew off the handle when it first happened, but she should have. Like, I would have flew off the handle too. I think anybody would flew off the handle. This guy is yelling at you about a freaking handshake when you, again, now you know this becomes a story and your team just had their best win of the season. They beat an undefeated team, and now you're yelling about a handshake. She said, I'm gonna beat Geno's ass. That's how I would have felt too. I would have felt like I wanted to beat Geno's ass if he embarrassed my team like that. Totally. I had no problem with how Dawn responded to that. But now that cooler has prevailed, I think she handled this really well. Last thing on this, I also feel like it is important to note we need to abolish handshake lines. Handshake lines are contrived sportsmanship that means nothing in college sports. And they should be done away with. Especially, at least particularly in college football and college basketball. It's stupid. Last time I checked, and it's not really in college football. Guys can go to the locker room, but it's really only college basketball that does this. College basketball, it is completely stupid. In the pros, you watch an NBA game, you watch the WNBA game, clock hits 0, buzzer goes off. There's no mandated handshake line, but guess what? Players find a way to go and handshake, hug, do whatever, take pictures with whoever they want from the other team and show good sportsmanship. Same thing in the WNBA. Sportsmanship doesn't die because you end a handshake line. But what we keep seeing in college sports is what happens in NBA games when there is a beef or there is a problem where a guy maybe has a beef with a guy or coaches are going at it. What typically happens is you'll see assistant coaches and people and teammates or whatever maybe drag a guy kind of off the court when the buzzer ends to make sure there's no altercation. Or if there's some guy salty about a loss or whatever, they just leave. Like how many times we've criticized LeBron for not shaking hands after a game or whatever. They just leave and they just go to the back. Like people will if they don't want to shake hands, they won't shake hands. But and I'm assuming if this was a college basketball game or NBA game rather, like, you know, Geno Smith would have just went to the back. He would have just, game would have ended. He would not have acknowledged Don Staley. He would have been pissed off. He would have went right to the back. And none of this would have happened. It would have been maybe a minor story, but we still keep the focus on South Carolina and all of this. Instead, he created this viral moment because of this antiquated practice of making people do a handshake line after games. It's silly. It's stupid. It should be done with. We're having too many of these altercations in men's college basketball. We've seen brawls break out because of these. Like, it's stupid. What are we doing? Like, it's people got on me when I put this on social media. Oh, you're letting Geno off the hook. No, I'm not. I think everything he did was completely clownish. But people are going to be clowns. How about we take the opportunity away from them to do that kind of nonsense, and the people that want to show good sportsmanship and want to show honor, like, let them do what they do. Let them shake hands, and they will. Trust me, they will. There will be sportsmanship after the end of the handshake line. I promise you. But I mean, this is an antiquated thing that we've kept in college sports for way too long, and this is why this thing happened. Because if without the handshake line, I don't think that Dawn and Geno even acknowledge each other. That's just the end of it. A couple more things before we get out of here, man. So LeBron James is responding to critique on his Memphis comments. If you remember, he had said this about to the Bob Does Sports team regarding not wanting to play in both Milwaukee and Memphis.
So does the travel get worse for you, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just wears on you more?
Yeah, a random Tuesday in Milwaukee, staying at the Hyatt at 41 years old. You think I want to do that? Being in Memphis on a random ass Thursday. I'm not like the first guy to even talk about it in the NBA. Like, we all like, you guys have to move. Just go over to Nashville. You got Vanderbilt over there. You got the NASCAR. You got a stadium. Don't they got a hockey team too?
Yeah, Predators.
Like, they got everything.
So, like I said on Friday, I thought these comments were nasty. I thought they were nasty. I still think they were nasty. But, you know, I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of pushback. And this was LeBron James who came back and answered those comments.
So,
did I say I don't like black people?
No, I didn't say that. But there were people who were wondering why Memphis was targeted. Like,
Milwaukee was too. Did they miss that one too? They didn't see that?
not as much commentary.
Oh, yeah, okay. I said Milwaukee as well. Yeah. 41 years old. There's two cities I do not like playing in right now. And that's Milwaukee and that's Memphis. What is the problem? I don't like going home either. Shit, and I'm from there. What is people are ridiculous. They also get mad at my son being on the team too. So we talking about?
I find it funny that his son thing is it's clearly still a sensitive topic because he brought that up out of nowhere. Who the hell is talking about Bronny right now? So clearly it's something that still is going to bother him for a while, it seems like. So this was, again, disappointing. I mean, LeBron had an opportunity to... And listen, he can feel however he wants. I really don't care how he feels. That doesn't stop people from having an opinion about how he feels or feeling like he's using his platform in the wrong way or that his commentary is flawed. That doesn't change anything, but I don't care how he feels. I don't care if he doesn't like Memphis. I don't care if he doesn't like Milwaukee. I don't care if he doesn't like Cleveland. I don't care about that. What I do care about is when you say a team in a franchise in a community that is disenfranchised. And to be honest, the disenfranchised part is important because of who LeBron James is, but it could also almost be any city. When you're saying that a city should just lose its team, but it's a disenfranchised one, and as you go to Nashville, a predominantly white city that gets tons of tax breaks and tons of money pumped in to make it a tourist destination because it, quote, has hockey and NASCAR and Vanderbilt University, it's just nasty work. It's just nasty work. And LeBron James had an opportunity to actually take this commentary that was coming against him, and he could disagree with it, but he can do it and not distort it, and actually take it for what it was. And instead, he decided to bring this down to gaslighting and nonsensical conversations and nonsensical topics. Nobody said that he doesn't like black people. That's a freaking ridiculous. That's a ridiculous response to people saying that, hey, maybe you shouldn't move a team because you don't like a hotel. Nobody said he didn't like black people. I mentioned in the video the first time we did this. I know the idiots on my social media keep saying, "What about Milwaukee? What about?" If you watch the show, I mentioned Milwaukee. My issue with Milwaukee wasn't that we didn't talk about Milwaukee moving forward. I mentioned that you mentioned it to give full context, but I didn't talk about Milwaukee much more beyond that because he didn't say the Milwaukee Bucks should move to Madison. He didn't say the Milwaukee Bucks should be moved to Green Bay. He didn't say that. So had he said that, I would have had a problem with that too. But what he said was, and I think it was very ironic that while Milwaukee also is a city with a lot of black folks, I thought it was ironic that of the two cities he mentioned, he talked about, I don't like to go to Cleveland either. All right, well, you didn't say, hey, let's move Cleveland to Columbus. Don't they got hockey and Ohio State University over there? He didn't say that. He didn't say that even in those comments. So my issue, like a lot of other people's issues, is that when you say a community that already is disenfranchised, that has a business that makes that in terms of revenue generated makes $330 million a year, a franchise that, while it is the least valuable franchise in all of sport of the NBA, is still worth $3 to $4 billion. And you're saying that franchise and that community that already has several of its issues, it should just be stripped away from the community and taken to a city that does not care for basketball, does not want the NBA, does not need the NBA, because it quote unquote has NASCAR or whatever. It's just it's ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous. And the fact that he can't defend that aspect of it, he has to go back to, I just don't like the city. I'm 41 years old. What about Bronny? Like, these are nonsensical responses to this. Nonsensical. And and you got these folks who are because, they're, and I'm not saying LeBron doesn't have legitimate haters. Of course he does. He has legitimate haters for various different, and I say legitimate, I don't mean legitimate that their hate is legitimate. I'm saying that he has people who actually just dislike everything he does. Of course. There are people who are Jordan stans who just hate him for that. People who hate him for the decision. People who hate him because his politics and how he is spoken out against in response to social issues. People who hate him for a lot of different reasons. Who, yes, everything he does, there will be something against him. I understand that. But what is terrible about stan culture is you have these stans and these sycophants and these witnesses who can't look at any kind of criticism of an athlete and think of it as anything beyond hate. Oh, you're just hating. I'm not hating on LeBron James. I hate what he said. I hate what he said. And had he not said it, I would not have had a commentary on LeBron James. I don't care. Like these people who think that everyone commenting on this issue, like, oh, you guys are just waiting for LeBron James to do something. I was not really thinking about him. I was thinking about the playoffs. I was thinking about what the Lakers are going to do. I was actually interested in the Lakers before the Luka Doncic injury and stuff. I don't care about LeBron and all this nonsense, but I mean, hundreds of comments on my TikTok with people who are, some of them actually were people who agree with me, but these people are just like, oh, you just a hater. Oh, I'm like, get the F out of here, man. Like, what are you talking about? I stood up for the community of Memphis, and I stood up for what was right. I'm sorry, you want to keep mentioning, well, how come when Derek White said it and Kevin Durant said it? Well, those guys don't have the public platforms and the motion LeBron James does. LeBron James is the face of the NBA. LeBron James is one of the most famous athletes we've had for the last 30 to 50 years. That's just a reality. Like, to keep harping on why are we talking about this guy, that guy, I'm like, those guys' words don't really matter. If I had to do a video every time Draymond Green says something idiotic, I'd be sitting at this desk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He is so insufferable that you have to turn off the Draymond Green filter because he's going to say stuff every day. Some things are going to come out and they're going to sound completely idiotic and stupid. And if we're going to comment on everything Draymond Green says, it would feel like we're picking on him. It would feel like we're attacking him when he's just trying to live his life. It doesn't make sense. The guy already gets a lot of crap for a lot of stuff he says. And I saw what Draymond Green said weeks ago, and I hated it then. I texted my brother that I didn't like it. But it goes one ear out the other because it's Draymond Green and he says a lot of stupid stuff all the time. Kevin Durant says a lot of stupid stuff all the time. We don't care what Channing Frye has to say about Memphis. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the witnesses and the sycophants. Those guys, it does not matter what they say because they don't have actual emotion. They don't have legions of you witnesses who will come around and say, oh, you know what? Actually, LeBron has a good point. Or you know what? Maybe Memphis should move. Or you know what? Hey, Memphis actually sucks. I don't know how many people I want to use words that I'm not going to use on the air because I want to be respectful, or not respectful, but I want to be responsible is a better word. But you got these sellouts, a lot of people that look like me talking about the city of Memphis and the people of Memphis in a disgusting way because of what LeBron James said. That's why his platform is important. That's why he was criticized. Because once he says things like a city like Memphis doesn't deserve an NBA city, they should be removed to a city like Nashville, it gives cover and gives value to other people jumping on that bandwagon. And this is a city that's already behind the 8 balls, a city that already doesn't get a lot of support. So for you idiots who don't understand why people were critical of LeBron James' comments, it's because his words do carry weight. It's because LeBron, at various points in his career, has made himself a social conscious athlete and someone who's been a decipher of, morality in professional sports. That's what he's done. He's the one that has the slogan, I'm more than an athlete. He's the one that says, I'm just a kid from Akron like everybody else. He has made that his branding. He's the one that put on the I Can't Breathe shirt after Trayvon Martin was killed. He was the one that was instrumental in terms of his social commentary on various different police brutality and police shootings. He did that. Which means when he makes a comment outside of sports on a social platform, while he may not have seen it as a social issue, when you make a large-scale suggestion that has social ramifications, given you also presenting yourself as a social conscience, that's where the criticism comes in. Kevin Durant weighs in on nothing. He only cares about basketball and making money. And it's not even a diss to Kevin Durant. If that's what he likes, that's fine. He can do whatever he wants. He's a grown-ass man. Same thing with Draymond Green. Same thing with all these guys. LeBron's the one who wanted to position himself as someone who was socially conscious. But when you suggest that a team and a city should be, a city should be divorced from its team and be moved to Nashville because you don't like a hotel, it screams tone deaf. It screams somebody that says one thing that makes him look good. He takes a lot of heat for it too. I want to be clear. There's a lot of heat that LeBron has taken for his social justice cause, and I want to be clear. I've appreciated every single one of those takes. Every single one of those causes he's taken up for. I have appreciated and I have sung his praises on all of them. I've written on them in various different websites. So I appreciate those things. Which is why this was so gross. Why this was so nasty. And why this was so weak. And you people that are running to defend him are also weak. Running behind Draymond Green and Derek White. You were the first to talk about how LeBron's the best. He's the greatest. No one else matters. Don't tell me about Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson or Kareem. It's all LeBron. And then the one time LeBron steps out of line and people want to say, hey, listen, that was off. It's like, what about Derek White? Hey, what about Derek White? What about Channing Frye? Well, we can't forget about what Channing Frye said. I mean, come on. People are man babies and woman babies. Fighting over a guy who could not give a damn about what you have to say about him on the internet. Like I said, I sleep well, regardless of what you people want to say about me. I sleep well, knowing that I made it a commentary that was for the people. My commentary was not helping and aiding the image of a billionaire. He can aid his own image. He has done great work to craft his own image. Because he's actually done a lot of really good things. And he's an incredible athlete. But I will never feel bad about standing up for the community of Memphis or any community. Especially one that has the ties it has to the civil rights movement and the retaliation that has been against that community because of its role in the civil rights movement. And because it is a black city. LeBron claims to care about these things. I wish you would have thought about it there. And he let his ego win the day when you respond in commentary with, did I say I don't like all black people? What kind of freaking response is that? These people also don't like Bronny James. Are you freaking kidding me? We're talking about a team losing a city and you're worried about Bronny James? Like, what are we talking about, man? That's the last I'm talking about this guy. Go do something in the playoffs, which we probably won't. Because, you know, Luka's hurt and Reeves is hurt. And you're 40, as you keep on remind me, you're 41 years old. So, I don't know. But this was whack. This was whack. It's always going to be whack. It's never not going to be whack. It doesn't matter how many LeBron witnesses and sycophants want to come out of the woodworks to attack random people. To talk about how they suck or they're a hater or, well, look what you did. Or, like, get out of here, man. People make me sick. All right, last thing before we get out of here. I want to thank you guys again for checking out 40 Days and Counting. Again, you can catch all these episodes wherever you get your podcasts. If you're wanting to catch this, because, of course, you know, we live stream, but these episodes live beyond here. So, if you want to catch these episodes, maybe you're on the go, maybe you're driving, maybe you're working out, maybe you're on the bike, whatever the case may be. All audio versions of these episodes go up on our podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts, New Generation Podcast Network. You can find that on the screen below. You got the lower third going on, so there's some information there. That's where you'll find all audio versions of this podcast. Of course, again, these shows also live on beyond as well on YouTube. Again, New Generation Media is the channel you're going to want to subscribe to. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you can. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a like. That helps me a ton and greatly appreciate that. And make sure you, of course, again, follow me on the other social platforms where we're streaming live. We're streaming live on X. Streaming live on Instagram. Let's see. Who's popped in on Instagram today? I've had a lot of different people pop in on Instagram. Shout out to Benji Kleiner. Shout out to Big Friendly. Shout out to Mass1505. He's in every day. I mentioned MAP_65. My guy Alex Azarm was in there. Shout out to my guy Alex from WFAN. Jake Arobi was in here. My barber Rod. Shout out to my guy Rod. Shout out to the underscore general MP also tapping in at some point throughout the Instagram live stream. I really do appreciate all you guys. Last thing, man. Of course, you got my my X handle there. Instagram, I'm live action EJ. That's my Instagram handle. If you want to follow me on X, where you get a lot of this commentary and this yakety yak, as they say on Inside the NBA. You can follow me on X. EJ_Stewart is where you'll find me on X. So last thing again before we get out of here, I do want to make sure I don't shortchange CM Punk and his pipe bomb on Monday Night Raw. This, like I said before, to me was the Punk I've been waiting for. I think that this was the best promo he delivered. Ironically, it was one where Roman Reigns actually wasn't there in the building. But I knew this was going to be an important moment because you had what was everything that happened over the weekend. So Friday Night Raw, SmackDown happens. The co-main events of WrestleMania is, of course, CM Punk and Roman Reigns. That's going to be on night 2. Night 1, the most likely main event. I don't know if they've officially said it. If they did, I might have missed it. It will be Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. A big development happened on Friday Night SmackDown where, Randy Orton has turned heel, and he has been vicious in these attacks on Cody Rhodes. He took out Matt Cardona as well, and he's kind of gone back to this very villainous role, hearing the voices in his head, taking headshots with the chairs. Like, he's doing all the Randy Orton things you would expect from a heel turn. But throughout all this, he's also been on the phone referencing these conversations he's been having with someone who's been reminding him of, who he is and what he's capable of, and reminding him that indeed wrestling does have more than one royal family, which is Cody's mantra, which of course he also is a third generation superstar. So third generation wrestler, we can do that now. Third generation pro wrestler. So, this was a storyline. I think, Cody and Randy already have enough story as it is, but okay, there's someone that is in Orton's ear. It's fascinating. I'm curious to know who that is, and that could be something that was interesting. So they face off on SmackDown. They start getting into it, and then all of a sudden, Pat McAfee shows up in the ring. Everybody's like, "What the f?" And he low blows. Cody Rhodes, and he then goes on a tirade in a promo where he's talking about how this is why the business is sucks, because people like Cody Rhodes are the stars, and the stupid marks on the internet don't know what they're talking about. And he's going on and on about like all this stuff about how Randy Orton is gonna save the business because we're gonna get back to the Attitude Era style of wrestling. We're bringing back Raw, rawness to this. We're bringing back Edge to this. I don't mean Edge or Raw. I mean bringing rawness and bringing, Edge in terms of like not the wrestler, but edgy content. And so it was just a bizarre reveal. I've tried to give it, and we got 2 more weeks, I guess. I'm gonna try to give it a shot. I try to give everything WWE does a shot, but it was highly disappointing that the reveal was Pat McAfee. The reasoning behind it didn't seem to make much sense. He's sitting there complaining about how the product hasn't been great and they're not selling enough tickets, which seems very weird, breaking of the fourth wall in a way that actually hurts the show. Like, you're on a show and you're saying, this show sucks, and you're not selling enough tickets because the show sucks. I'm like, well, it seems like Vince Russo in 1999, 2000 kind of stuff, where you're talking about the struggles of the company in the storyline. It doesn't... And there's ways to do it and it work. This didn't seem to be the way to do it. And it didn't seem to be a way to sell tickets, to be like, hey, you guys suck, you're not buying any tickets, and it's because the show's been bad. It's like, all right, well, now you're confirming why I haven't spent the $500 you want me to spend on one night of WrestleMania. So that didn't go over well on the internet. Surprised that IWC didn't like it. It was very weird to even hear the IWC being mentioned by like Pat McAfee. It just... Everything about it was weird. It seemed like it kind of took a lot of, sizzle away from Orton. Like, he's a legend, and he is a superstar, and he's worthy of a main event of WrestleMania, and this is a great matchup with him and Cody Rhodes, given all their background history and the work he had done as a heel. Like, I thought he did some effective heel work that was interesting. His turn was good. The weeks after that have been good. I thought he's been fine. I didn't think it needed all of this. Which then the show goes later on, and Cody Rhodes comes back, and he cuts this very interesting promo where he's like, Pat McAfee, what are you even doing here? It's ridiculous that you're the person that Ronnie's been talking to. It's like if the NWO was looking for the third man, and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash revealed it to be Disco Inferno, which was it was a good line. It didn't land well, because I think a lot of people in the audience like, who's Disco Inferno? me being a WCW super fan back then, I laughed. I was like, that's funny. But it was a weird promo. It was a good promo. Well executed. Energy was there, but it was weird because it seemed to kind of blur on-air criticism with like creative criticism, because that's a creative criticism. Like the writers chose it to be Pat McAfee, and to say that this is like Disco Inferno being the third man in NWO is a diss to the writers. But then he also said like, to you and everyone that represents you, like, you know who I'm talking about. Like, this is nonsense, and you're not gonna like what I have to say moving forward. And then he left. It was like, was that a shot at Auriemma? And then all this reporting came out almost immediately after SmackDown, basically saying that there are creative differences happening with SmackDown. That Pat McAfee and his insertion was not at the behest of the creative team. This was at the behest of TKO. TKO thought that there needed to be a celebrity presence in this match for some reason. They already have Jelly Roll involved, and they've already have I Show Speed involved in a different feud. And Lil Yachty's involved in Trick Williams' feud. So there's plenty of celebrities in this WrestleMania. But apparently they thought they needed another one. They landed on Pat McAfee, who works for the company. So I don't know if he works as a celebrity. But, okay, they landed on Pat McAfee. But that this was not something that the creative wanted. They had a different vision and a different direction for this. So then that really set this thing off. Like, oh, man, okay, this is really bad. We're a week away from WrestleMania, and they're revealing something that the creative team behind this isn't even totally invested in. Not a good look. So then we go to what happened with CM Punk on Raw. So he starts Raw, and I knew this was going to be a big night. Didn't know it would be right at the top, but I thought maybe I should turn on the Raw. I'm glad I did. CM Punk basically goes into his second pipe bomb. And it begins with conversations first about Roman Reigns and kind of the difference between him and Reigns.
My bloated cousin isn't on the board of directors. I don't surround myself with wise men and advocates and yes men who want to protect myself from the truth. No, my daddy wasn't a pro wrestler who gave me a favor job because I sucked at football. No. I have paid my dues, and I have earned and deserved everything I bust my ass for. And you are just a buck-toothed Nepo baby who ate dog food for a weird old man.
I mean, damn. That is awesome work, by the way. That's great mic work. Bringing in Vince McMahon and him talking about how, you got everything that was handed to you. You got your cousin. You got the fact that, your dad was in the business. And you had a weird old man who made you eat dog food. I told that man, to kick rocks, which is quite funny. And that's basically kind of what he says in the next clip here.
And that weird old man for years treated me like a dog, and he expected me to smile. But I had FU money, so I took that and my dignity and I left. And that's why you hate me. It's because you can't control me like you control some of the people, like you control your cousins and your family. They can't control me.
Okay, again, strong promo here. And interesting thing, hey, I didn't take any of that crap because they knew I would have left. And guess what? When that guy started treating me like a dog, I left. And you dealt with his crap. And again, Punk getting in on Reigns here mentions how, because Reigns, I say, hey, I've been in all these main events, I've done all this stuff. He's like, well, yeah, you did that, but it wasn't as smooth as maybe you make it out to be.
Roman, you can brag about how many times you've been in the main event of WrestleMania, but if me or anybody else were afforded as many opportunities as you have and sucked at the first 8 of them so spectacularly bad, we'd be fired and blackballed, but you can't blackball me. They can't blackball me. And listen up. I can gleefully stand on the bridge and blow it up because, bitch, I know how to swim.
I mean, again, great mic work here, but it ended with this, which was, he said, oh, you think I'm done with Roman? No, there's more I got for you. And then that's when he went off the rails and ended up responding to what happened on SmackDown and some of the conversations regarding Pat McAfee and Endeavor president, TKO president, Auriemma.
Pat McAfee. You buggy-whipped arm, no-brain hillbilly. You think you can come here to the business, my business of pro wrestling, and run your mouth while you just wrote a check that your narrow ass can't cash. You want to talk about ticket sales? Do me a favor. Call up that agent that was foolish enough to shoehorn you into this business and this show and tell him to lower the ticket prices.
Oh, man. Well, that escalated really quickly. Shout out to Andrea who pointed it out. I actually thought that it was kind of like maybe him misspeaking or whatever, but everyone else seems to be believing the idea that CM Punk referred to Pat McAfee as Pat McAfee. McAfee. Okay. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I was like, oh, I thought maybe he misspoke or whatever. But then I've heard it again, and I'm like, yeah. And a lot of people thought that he did it too. So, I don't know what to make of that. But certainly CM Punk wanted to put that out there in terms of Pat McAfee. Again, he tried to stay in story a little bit, but then he kind of shifted away from the story when he started talking about, like, tell that agent who, you talk about ticket sales. Because, again, he's been the one talking about, oh, the ticket sales at WrestleMania are low, and this is a shame. It's because, you guys aren't getting the job done in terms of, the Cody Rhodes of the world, right? And you're not, because we're not embracing the stars like the Randy Ortons. He's like, oh, you want to actually get some ticket sales in here? How about you lower the freaking ticket prices, which has been a calling cry and what people have been talking about for a while now about why ticket sales have sagged. Like, Endeavor has been extremely aggressive with how they have priced tickets for WrestleMania. I'm someone who's gone to 3 WrestleManias now in my life. Very lucky to have gone to 3. 2 of them I paid for with my own money and went with tickets and bought tickets. And I'm not gonna say they were cheap. And I wasn't sitting, front row in those first 2. But, like, they were reasonable tickets, and they were reasonably priced. I probably paid like $200 a ticket for each one, maybe $300 for the first one. But I was sitting in like a pretty good area. Like, to get in the building for these last 2 WrestleManias has basically been like $500, like something insane, to sit in the upper deck. I mean, the prices, if you want to sit anywhere near the ring or anywhere near not the top section, you're talking about spending $800 to $1,000 on each ticket for each night. It's been aggressive with how they priced them, and they've talked about why ticket sales have been sagging. It's like, well, they've overpriced these tickets. There's no question about it. Endeavor, and they've been overpricing a lot of stuff, by the way. They've been aggressive with Raw tickets. They've been aggressive with SmackDown tickets. Now they've been selling out, so I think they maybe had a little more too much dip on the chip, thinking that, well, if we can be aggressive with the SmackDown and Raw sales and these regular pay-per-view sales, maybe we could be aggressive with WrestleMania. But they got way too aggressive, and there was not enough big storylines and good enough creative to get people to say, I will spend $1,000 just to get into the building for 2 nights of WrestleMania. $1,200, $1,300 just to get in the building. It just wasn't. It hasn't been good enough for that. And also, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's like, and Vince McMahon has all of his issues, and some of them are criminal. We now learn, allegedly. But, like, one of the mantras apparently he had was that he was very particular about how WWE priced their tickets and how they didn't go too aggressive, because he always saw wrestling as a family event, something that you took your kids to, something that you took your whole family to, something you took your wife to, or whatever. So, like, he didn't think people would be showing up solo dolo able to spend $800 on a ticket. So he always wanted to price them in a way in which it was reasonable for a family, maybe for a once in a lifetime opportunity, to go to WrestleMania. He was very adamant about that. TKO came in, they've been reportedly very aggressive the opposite way. How do we make the most money? How do we make this like the Super Bowl? This should be Super Bowl-like ticketing. Which is just silly, because, like, the Super Bowl, there are all these, like, sponsors and different kind of folks. Some people don't even have to pay for those tickets. It's a very different thing than wrestling. With these WrestleMania is the biggest event, those are the hardcore fans that are going to that. To price them out is just... It has not worked. And so for CM Punk to take the mask off and kind of take down the curtain and be like, this is our issue, is our leadership. Because Auriemma was leadership. He runs TKO. he's also Pat McAfee's agent, which is why he said that agent needs to who's screwed up by ensuing you in this stupid ass storyline, needs to get on the phone and turn down these damn ticket prices. That is all fair game when it comes to criticism that makes sense. I'm very fascinated how much of this is they let CM Punk go because maybe Triple H is actually really annoyed about the interference as well. Triple H has gotten a lot of crap for a lot of the issues that have happened and a lot of criticism, and he's had to try to spin a lot of this stuff. I don't know if he's feeling the heat of that, and maybe he say, you know what, Punk, I've had enough. They ruined my Cody Rhodes, my Cody Rhodes Randy Orton story, one that I'm sure he was highly invested in because of his history, especially with Randy Orton, but even also with Cody Rhodes. I'm sure he was very heavily invested in wanting to tell that story. He's actually kind of the perfect person to tell that story. He was very much around during the Legacy era, fighting Legacy. I'm sure he's like, yo, what the F? Like, you screwed this up. And maybe he said, CM Punk, go make me some money. And that means you bury Auriemma. I don't care. So maybe that's what he did. Maybe that's what he told Cody Rhodes on Friday. But I'm curious. We'll learn, I think, after this year, by this calendar year, by the time this year is over, if Triple H is still here, I think that might be the sign that, okay, maybe he is also part to blame for a lot of this stuff. If he is not, if they change creative, because I cannot imagine Ari Emanuel loves being destroyed by his talent that he's paying, and particularly attacking his business practices. Because you could say, oh, like you're too focused on changing the story, and you saddled us with Travis Scott last year and all this stuff. When you start getting after it, he's running his business the wrong way and calling for him to lower ticket prices on national or on Netflix, that's a different kind of crossing that I don't think that he would like. So if Triple H is still around by next year, I would be surprised. I get the feeling that we're gearing up for someone else to be running creative that's not Triple H, which some people will cheer for. I'm telling you, I don't know if that's a good thing. I really don't. I think that Triple H is, and maybe I'm being naive, I think he is trying to keep the Endeavor vultures away from the creative as much as possible, and it's impacting a lot of the creative. And I'm not trying to absolve him. He's had some terrible mistakes. He's had some terrible creative ideas and creative decisions too, and I'm a Triple H guy, but I think he is fallen short in this role. But I think about how like WrestleMania 40 was built and how they pivoted, because that was another Ari Emanuel deal, probably with The Rock and Roman having to be the thing, even though Cody won the Royal Rumble. Like, all this nonsense. Like, I've seen how Triple H can write a wrestling show. I watched NXT Black and Gold. I saw the changes to Raw and SmackDown when he first got there. This don't feel like Triple H writing right now. I gotta be real. My guy, and that's what my guy Lucas Goldman would say too. My co-host of Off Script Wrestling podcast I have. My guy Martin Torres in the YouTube chat. Triple H needs his top two babyfaces doing work shoots 2 weeks out of Mania. Vibes are in shambles. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah. Cody Rhodes and CM Punk are his two top babyfaces because Roman's kind of more of a tweener. And they're having to attack Ari Emanuel to generate buzz for WrestleMania. Yeah, not necessarily the best place you want to be right now. Listen, CM Punk, well, one thing I will say, CM Punk, he's done everything he could to try to make this Roman Reigns feud thing great. And Roman's played his part too. Like, they have done their job. It's been the rest of this show that has just not been able to come together in the right way. And that's a shame. It sucks that we're here. But you know what? At the end of the day, WrestleMania, despite how bad Night 2 was, and really the last main event of Night 2, Night 1 of WrestleMania last year had a ton of really awesome moments and had some awesome matches, and I think was thoroughly pretty entertaining. Like, it doesn't mean they can't put together a great show still, but they're having a tough time with the build right now, no question about it. But shout out to CM Punk. That was a hell of a promo. I was thoroughly entertained, and that gave me the vibes and the feel of the old CM Punk. It was good to see him back, man. That's going to do it for now, man. I've gone way too long tonight. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of 40 Days and Counting. Going long makes sense given that I'm not going to be around for the rest of the week, so there won't be any episodes of 40 Days and Counting on Friday. They won't be alive because I'll be at my bachelor weekend, so that'll be a lot of fun. You guys will be able to follow me on social media to follow where I'm at and what we're doing. That's going to be an absolute blast, so I cannot wait for that. But yeah, I'll be away, so no 40 Days and Counting, but there are other shows that are already out. New Generation Hero Talk has a new episode. We talk about everything regarding Daredevil, not just what's happening in season 2 right now, Daredevil Born Again, but also what's going on for potentially season 3 and some reveals that have come out on the internet about who's going to show up in season 3. You definitely want to check out that conversation. That's both on the New Generation Podcast Network and on New Generation Media. That's our Hero Talk podcast. I also did an Orange and Blue Bloods episode earlier today, so if you want to hear my Knicks content, Knicks had a big win against the Hawks last night. They got a big game against the Celtics on Thursday. You can search Orange and Blue Bloods wherever you get your podcast to listen to that episode. You can also find that on the Generation Media YouTube page as well. So there's plenty of content. My brothers are expecting to do that. I think they might, if they didn't do it already, they're expecting to do Imperial Broadcast really soon. So we have a Star Wars podcast out as well. But that's going to do it, man. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you follow me on social media. Follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. Follow me on Instagram, Action EJ. TikTok as well, Action EJ. Make sure you follow New Generation Media's social accounts as well. We're on Twitter, New Generation Pod. We're on Instagram, New Generation Podcast. That'll do it for now. Thank you guys so much for checking out your boy. This is EJ Stewart. This is 40 Days and Counting. Have a great, great rest of your week.